Welcome into the latest edition of ESPN FC. Craig Burley, Ali Moreno and Stevie Nicol alongside me. It was the end of the festive period in the Premier League today. It ended with a bang. Spurs beating Chelsea by 2-0. Chelsea, of course, looking to make it 14 straight victories in a row. Spurs, overall, deserve this?
Yeah, no question. A couple of great goals.
Dele Alli pulling on to, no coincidence, and I think Spurs would have talked about this, try and get as many times down the right as possible and pull on to Azpilicueta, because he's a great little defender, but him and Moses at the back post are the weak link. You take Luiz and Cahill out of the equation and then you pull on to the smallest guy, which they did twice and got 2 goals. So brilliant from Spurs.
It was indeed brilliant for Spurs, and in terms of you get the ball to Eriksen, he gets his head up, finds the movement of the ball by Dele Alli. But this is when Chelsea gets exposed in terms of you're having Azpilicueta play as a centre-back, and he's not a centre-back. Now, it's worked over the course of this run, and it's been great, and everybody's been talking about the sort of work that he's done. But the difference between a guy like Azpilicueta and, say, a Chiellini or a Bonucci or Barzagli, which is the back three that Conte played with in Juventus, is that those sort of balls, even when they get clipped over the top, they're able to get to it because they have the height advantage. Azpilicueta does not. He was exposed. Chelsea as a whole, they seem to be a step behind Spurs throughout the course of the game. And whenever they were able to regain possession of the ball, did not do enough in the final third in transition, which is something that Chelsea, we've come to appreciate that transition going forward. Hazard disappeared in the match, and Costa was not active enough.
I think the one thing that you can't teach younger players, or you can try and sort of coach it and teach it a little bit, but I think it's more natural. It's playing without the ball. And Dele Alli, for a young guy, even though he had a poor summer and a slow start to the season, his ability to understand the timing of a run, and not just on the 2 goals, but you know, since we've seen him in the Premier League, the timing of the run, the areas that he runs into, how to work off a striker or a centre-half who's been pulled out of possession, and just making sure you go in there. He's quite natural at that, and that's a difficult thing to teach kids.
But it also exposes Moses, because when you're playing in that wide area, it's a cat and mouse game all the time, because you don't want to end up with 5 at the back. So Moses is continually trying to stay high so that he's not playing as a fullback. And eventually, basically on the 2 goals, he gets caught in between. And that's why they end up with Dele Alli putting the ball in.
If you remember, Stevie, Tottenham almost got caught out in the first half when I think it was Matic played a ball to Costa, who had pulled onto the right-hand side centre-half for Tottenham, and Kyle Walker had pushed on. He was... no, Eden Hazard, sorry. Eden Hazard got in off the back with the very same thing. So it is a cat-and-mouse game
that other teams haven't had, and they took full advantage of them.
It was very clear that the outside duels that were going on in terms of, did you see Alonso getting forward? Not really. Moses getting forward? Not really. It was Rose on one side and Kyle Walker on the other side. They were pushing Chelsea back, so there was no outlet for Chelsea. And once they regained possession of the ball, we saw things from Matic and Kante in particular, turnover after turnover after turnover, trying to build out of the back. That is something that we're not used to seeing from Chelsea. And when that happens, it allows then Spurs to continue to be on the front foot. They continue to press and repress, regain possession of the ball, and they were always on the attack against Chelsea.
What's going on with Spurs with regards to the fact that they've comfortably beaten Chelsea? Many people have already, Xhaka, for example, said that the title's done, given them now.
Man City
beat Man City comfortably.
Brilliant.
Yeah, Champions League, Monaco, Bayer Leverkusen, they can't even qualify from that group. Why is there no consistency with this team in these big matches?
It's a difficult one to answer. I mean, I think technically the Champions League is a different pace. I think, I've said before, defensively a lot of English teams get caught out against decent European opposition because of the defence. Although Spurs have got quite a decent-looking defence on paper, I think he left a couple of players out on a couple of different games, but they just weren't good enough in the Champions League. But time will tell if they're going to be good enough in this Premier League. But what we can say is that on a big occasion tonight, if you remember back, we talked about it yesterday, we remember back to the end of last season, when Chelsea had their number after a dreadful season, but got under the skin and really riled them up and put Spurs off the game. That did not happen tonight. They were pretty comfortable from the get-go.
I think there's a lot to be said for experience of being through the mill. And I think what maybe we're seeing this year with Tottenham is that they're a team that's young, but they have gained experience from what's happened last year. And I would expect them, between now and the end of the season, to completely keep playing the way they had done tonight. As far as pressing and as far as a 3, I think he needs to stick to a 3.
Right.
Every time they change and go back to a 4, they drop a level. Every time they've gone 3 and they've pressed high, then they do well. So guess what? Keep doing it. Don't change it.
Well, he can afford to sit Eric Dyer in between the back because he's got Dembele and he's got Victor Wanyama, who I think has done an amazing job since coming in from Southampton. Big and strong and mobile, and he reads the game better every time you see him. So they can afford to sit Dyer in between Vertonghen and Alderweireld.
I can't wait to see what he does at the weekend, Pochettino, you know. Just going back to what I said there, because Conte has just won 13 games in the trot because he's kept it exactly... He's kept it the way it is because they were doing well. Let's see if Pochettino does that.
OK, let's get your marks, Stevie.
Right, in goal, Lloris never looked like he was going to get beaten today. Back 3 was always cruising. Vertonghen, I thought, got himself forward a couple of times as well. That's why he gets an extra one. Wanyama, I mean, he put in so much work, which you have to do against Matic and Kante. Dembele, I was a little disappointed. He did work hard, but there wasn't much from him. And no surprise, Ali and Eriksen, the two guys involved in the goals, 9s. Harry Kane, I thought, was a little disappointing. I mean,
now, regular viewers will know that you've been very critical of Christian Eriksen in the past.
Very.
Yeah. Well, he hadn't done anything till what, the end of November?
Till tonight.
Till the end of November, he hadn't been involved.
Right.
And then since then, he's been fantastic. And you saw today, the 2 balls. I mean, you talk about something that looks as though on the training ground they were working on, and it just comes up trumps, not just once, but twice. OK,
let's get Chelsea's marks then. I imagine they're slightly lower from Ali.
Not nearly as high, and when you give up 2 goals the way they did... Wait, hold on a second. They lost 2-0, right?
Yes.
And they were outplayed, right?
Were they Courtois' fault? Either of those goals?
You still give up 2 goals, and Courtois was late coming out in the second. There was a chance for him to perhaps snatch that cross. He did not. Azpilicueta, David Luiz, and Cahill, you give up 2 goals, you get 3s. Moses, Kante, and Matic, and Alonso, they did not do enough in possession, not enough in attack. Too many turnovers from Kante, too many turnovers from Matic. Late stepping out to Eriksen crossing the ball. Nothing from Hazard. Costa at least was running around, and Pedro should have been subbed out at halftime. Anything else?
Wow.
I was surprised you never put Willian in for Pedro at half-time.
Nah.
I said that to you at your desk, but you weren't listening.
Well, no, I was
talking to myself. No, but I just thought he would make... I felt he would have made a change at half-time because the momentum was swinging Tottenham's way.
One thing I did listen to you say, with 20 minutes to go, there's no way Chelsea are going to get back into this.
I never felt...
And I was obviously hoping they would, because then I'd bring this up and then go, haha, you said this. But why were you so convinced that they weren't going to get anything late on? Why weren't they going to rally like Arsenal?
It was a bit like the Liverpool-Man City game at the weekend. I never really felt, even though it was a tight game, that City were going to score. I mean, I'm sure Liverpool fans were biting their nails, but I never felt they were going to score, City, because they didn't look as if they were on it. I didn't think Chelsea looked as if they were on the game tonight. I thought they were all... if we just talk about the front guys, especially the front 3, they were all half a yard slower or not as sharp in the mind as they've been for those 13 games. And I thought Spurs' shape was pretty good. So I never felt that Lloris or Spurs were in any danger as they were into 70 minutes.
And for once, they looked frustrated, the front 3. I mean, we saw Costa and Pedro arguing. I mean, we've never seen that all season. That shows you that they're not at it, and it shows you that they were frustrated during the game. And when you're frustrated, you can't go and play the way you've been playing.
Is it a big deal?
Come on, Stevie.
Like Pedro and Costa having that sort of argument? Costa calling you out so publicly?
Listen,
well,
I don't like
ball.
it.
He never made a great run. Was it a bad ball he played?
Well, he blamed him and he blamed him, so...
Yeah.
But it's not something you want to see. It does happen, but the fact they actually made up about, 60 seconds later on...
I don't mind this. This is not exactly a Ronaldo-esque strop in front of 100,000 people.
It was a big strop.
Listen, if they start fighting...
It was a big strop.
Shut up.
That strop is about to come right here.
We've seen some big strops over the years in games, and that wasn't a big strop.
I've seen them in the studio as well.
It's coming.
But Stevie talked about Pochettino, and what he would do next. I'm looking at Conte in the same manner. Is he going to rip things up now and say, right... I don't think he's going to change the shape, but is he going to change personnel and say, well, I wasn't happy with him, and I'm going to bring some players in? Or is he going to say, OK, blip, bad night at the office, but I'm going to go with these guys again?
And, of course, it means that Chelsea won't get the record for the top-flight winning streak. That still remains with Arsenal over those 2 seasons of 14 straight victories. After the break, then, we'll be discussing how this role affects the title race. Welcome back. This is how things stand then in the Premier League. After today's result, Chelsea remain 5 points clear over Liverpool. Spurs then up to third, level on points with City. Arsenal dropped to fifth. Manchester United 2 adrift of Arsene Wenger's side. So after that 2-0 victory, we asked you, are third place Tottenham in the title race? On Twitter, 54% of you, as it stands, says yes. Are they in the title race, Craig?
They're in the race. Are they going to win it? I don't think so.
Why not?
If you sat here now and said to me, look, put your life savings on Tottenham to win the league, I wouldn't do it. And I wouldn't put it on Arsenal either.
Right.
I would sooner back Liverpool at the moment after that win over Man City than anybody else.
Do you still think Liverpool are the closest contenders to Chelsea?
Well, I meant to state the obvious, but I mean, if you looked at the league table about 10 seconds ago, I would suggest yes.
Yes, I know, but sometimes...
No, I mean...
There are 18 matches to go.
Look, it's opened it up. That's all it's done. It's opened it up at the moment. But they're still major favourites, are they not, Chelsea?
What do you think?
It's opened up slightly, and not opened up to Spurs. Not opened up to Arsenal. I don't think momentum is with a team like Arsenal. And I don't think Spurs is consistent enough, because we just talked about it. They can beat a team, they can look great, and then all of a sudden they can go on a run where they're not scoring goals. I don't trust Spurs. And history says that I'm correct.
But, Stevie, you said just in the last part, you feel that they were wounded, they were hurt last season. That's going to help them for the second half of this campaign.
Well, it should. I mean, normally when you go through an experience like that, then the next time it comes along, you're ready for it. And what they showed us today is that they could win the title. I still think Chelsea are favourites, but I think...
Well, they are favourites, odds on.
Tottenham are definitely in the race.
Spurs at 14s.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is going to be down to what Pochettino does with his team. If he keeps chopping it around, keeps changing, resting players, changing different formations, then they won't win it. If he can stick to a formula, and I don't see what was wrong with this one they had at Chelsea, if he can stick to a formula added to what they went through last year, then they can be contenders.
If anybody was going to win it, if Chelsea slip up, I personally would rather see Liverpool or Tottenham than say City or Arsenal. I don't think United are in the race. I think they're big fights for top four. But I'd like to see something fresh. Pochettino, quite fresh. Klopp, quite fresh. And quite honestly, this last few days, something rankles with me with this Pep Guardiola and the complaining and the moaning and the crying and talking about City being a second-tier team and all that nonsense. It really has been grating with me. And I think two progressive teams and two progressive managers at the moment are the two teams chasing the pack. And if that upsets fans of the other teams, then fine. But if somebody is catching Chelsea, I'd like to see it be Tottenham and Liverpool, who play some damn good football.
Are Spurs going to finish higher than Arsenal, finally, this season, from what we've seen in the opening 20 matches?
But look,
I would put money on them. I've totally lost the plot with Arsenal. I mean, we have no idea what we're going to get from them whatsoever.
What did you make of it yesterday? We didn't really discuss on the show. Giroud, obviously, with the equaliser, late on, very dramatic, but he goes off to...
20 minutes to go. It feels like a win.
Right.
But I would firmly put the finger right at Arsene Wenger. When you stick a team on the field and it starts the way the game did, with the way they come out the blocks, that is 100% down to Arsene Wenger. You have to make sure that your team, particularly Arsenal, you win the fight. You've got to win the fight before you can play your great football, which they can play. And they go out on the field and it's almost like they're not ready. And that's 100% down to Arsene Wenger. Not winding them up, not getting into them, not making sure that they win their tackles or whatever it may be. It's all about this, let's knock it for the park. And this, you can't always do that. And when it comes to a fight, guess what? They always lose.
And how about the fact that not only does he not wind the team up, not only is the team not ready to play, he's actually given the team a built-in excuse in terms of, hey, you know what? They're tired. The scheduling, the conflicts, the traveling. Oh my. I feel so bad for Arsenal. I feel so bad for the fans. I feel so bad for Giroud and company. I don't care.
We'll talk about the scheduling a little later on. Craig, who have you got?
The comeback was against Bournemouth.
Well, yeah.
And what people forget is to make a great comeback against the mighty Bournemouth, it's telling you the part of the game up until then was an unmitigated disaster.
Yeah.
Which it was. So it's only papering over cracks. What was the question again?
Spurs or Arsenal? Who are finishing higher?
It's a difficult one. I'm going to go Spurs this year. although they threw it away last year. But I'm going to go Spurs this year. Arsenal need change. They're not going to win the league, and they need to change the man at the top and freshen things up.
Well, of course, a lot of teams will be looking to freshen things up over the next month. The January transfer window is open. To check out the live blog. But there's Stevie. Oh, looking well.
Knowledge.
Where he could be heading. Check it out on the website.
One guy who won't complain about it, and that's Klopp. Do you think for 1 second? Do you think for 1 second after a game he's going to come out with a Wenger?
He's already been out weeks ago complaining about fixtures.
Do you think he's going to complain after he loses a game? He's going to blame the fixtures.
He's already complained.
This is what Jurgen Klopp then had to say after that draw against Sunderland. I am not able to explain it because I don't know exactly what I saw. I'm not sure if you can play better with that break. He goes on to say, I don't know how it feels when you have to do the things you have to do. About the football we played, I actually have no idea how to speak about it.
Uh-oh. What has he got an idea about?
I don't think he has an idea about what he saw.
See, Chelsea lost
twice in 48 hours.
Chelsea lost. And
so your theory was completely wrong?
No. Chelsea lost. Liverpool had a more than decent period of 7 points in 3 games, but it could have been 9, and that gap could have been even closer off the back of Chelsea losing.
Steve, you've been saying basically that the managers
they've missed an opportunity.
Honestly,
you also said that Klopp wouldn't complain.
I'm so disappointed because that was the point I was trying to make, Craig. I didn't think that Klopp would be the one that would turn round and blame the break. But you know what? They're all at it. Even if Klopp's doing it, then I'm sorry. I mean, it's just a crutch. All it is a crutch to put up for either a bad performance or a result that went against you. And I'm just fed up listening to it. Can you imagine, right? If one of us went over to coach in Serie A, La Liga, and started complaining because there's a break, they'd think they were off or nut. Wouldn't they? So why did everybody go to the Premier League and then start complaining about the fixtures over the Christmas period? It's part of the culture. It is what it is. So don't start complaining.
In all fairness, the argument is, in England, is that the Premier League clubs in particular have sold their soul to the TV companies, which I used to work for, and I know how it goes. And so
you still do? You still do?
I mean, in the UK. I'll do it today anyway for the next few minutes. But and so therefore the TV companies control, obviously, the fixture to a certain extent for their scheduling. So there is that argument. However, I still believe the Liverpool playing in 7 days for 3 games and Chelsea playing in 10 wasn't right.
But Chelsea still lost.
Well, but you're missing my point again, Clothiers. because you know, an extra 48 hours for Liverpool could have meant 3 wins from 3 and 9 points rather than 7. See? An opportunity missed, young Daniel. And he's right to complain about it. I mean, he's 100% right, but
he knew what it was like when he took
it. Everybody wants it perfect the way they want it.
Now, what I would suggest...
Everybody's not... Unless you get it the way you want it, nobody's happy.
What I would suggest...
That's ever going to happen.
I understand. What I would suggest is that if you're going to play through the break, through the festive period, that everybody plays on the same day.
But you can't because of the TV.
Well,
the TV rights, which pays all their money, which pays the managers these millions of pounds.
And that's reality. So you accept your reality and you move forward with it. But if you want to make it fair, everybody should play on the same days.
ESPN FC back on your screens tomorrow. Plenty of reaction, of course, to what we saw take place at White Hart Lane today. Check your local listings for times.